IVM.
Hey everybody, quick request once again, if you could help us out by filling out our survey. It's at ivmpodcast.com/survey. This really helps us talk to advertisers about the kinds of people listening to these shows. Really do appreciate your help, and we're going to be doing a random drawing, and we'll be sending out some IVM swag. Hope you enjoy that.
Hello one, hello all. Welcome to the Diary of the Traveling Professor. And I'm Siddharth Deshmukh, your friendly neighborhood traveling professor himself. I had a very interesting panel that I was part of just a week back, or maybe even lesser than that. It was a panel to talk about how culture is being impacted by digital. And as part of the panel, I think some really good people giving their insights and inputs and anecdotes about how they see the world going and how culture is evolving with digital coming in. As with a lot of these panels, what I try to do is to try and learn something perhaps new from one of the fellow panelists, or stuff that typically escapes the eye, because I feel that in any of these panels what tends to happen is everyone's so intent towards making their own point that they kind of miss the beauty of just being part of a panel like this and just learn, right? Just learn. Anyway, what I did learn was how people find it easy to just adapt to digital. And I asked a fellow panelist of mine, how easy was it for people who had never seen a digital interface before? And I'm talking of people who are, in the poverty line, certainly, people who are practicing dance, actually, to be honest, never seen any Zoom meeting before. But how they find it easy or not easy to be in front of a camera and see how it works. Now, for this, you and I, we take this for granted, but I don't think that, people who have not used, let's say, a smartphone or not used the Zoom app are going to find it easy, right? But apparently they do. That leads me to believe that in the hypothesis that I've come to accept even more and more, and that's the aspect that this diary entry of mine is exploring, is how digital is actually shaping people's minds without people really understanding it. Not going the social dilemma way, I don't think new behaviors are created, but certainly a new generation of ours is being impacted by being digitally native first. Yeah, I'm talking of Gen Z. And I have two kids, clearly, who are very much slap bang middle in Gen Z. And I also teach a lot of people in the Gen Z because I teach undergraduates. And I have the most amazing times with them. I learn a lot from them. I get to understand, how intrigued they are by, anime and, so many different ways of e-gaming and their style and likes of music and the rest of it. And while a lot of it is, a generation being slightly different from the other generation, which is millennials in this case, and whatever, the lost generation, my generation, and the rest of it. But the fact is that this generation is a little different, and I don't think that people are actually understanding this difference. I actually believe that this is the first generation that is completely ruled by social algorithms. I, in fact, call it the algorithm generation. Now, what do I mean by the algorithm generation? I mean that, okay, the way in which social algorithms are set up, the user experience that each and every social medium gives to an end user is completely dependent upon their interests, likes, hobbies, etc. And how they evolve, the newsfeed or whatever you want to call it, evolves along with you. Now, Gen Zers, they've seen social media at a way earlier age than any one of us, right? Any one of us who are not Gen Zers. The fact is that because they are, impacted by social media to such a large extent, what tends to happen is that their worldview is also determined by the kind of feed that they see. And it is very interesting to see how this generation is completely ruled by the algorithm that is laid out for it. Now, this algorithm is different for everybody. Obviously, it's personalized. But what is very interesting to note, beyond its personalization, is that Gen Zers are connecting with interest-based communities to a large extent as compared to, say, even millennials or generations above that. So what do I mean by interest-based communities? I mean maybe an influencers community, like James Charles on YouTube has his own community, and yeah, that's an interest-based community wherein people are talking to strangers because of them having common interests, causes, and the rest of it. In fact, if I allude back to the same panel, one of the fellow panelists, I think Nikhil Taneja it was, shout out to him, said that it is more than just, their behaviors, but it is actually their identities. So their entire identities are driven by these interest-based communities or identity-based communities. They derive their identity based on what they like. Do I like anime? I belong to this interest-based community. Do I like, e-gaming? I'm here. Do I, like a certain social cause? I'm there. And they are collaborating with strangers, which essentially is the algorithm of the times. So here's the interesting thought for the algorithm generation, right, or Gen Z. What is happening to these guys is that they are connecting more with strangers than with people they actually know in real life at times. Especially the pandemic has proven this, because schools have shut down, colleges have shut down, and people find a certain amount of loneliness within their own families is another thing that we are seeing. The fact is that Gen Zers are in a strange situation wherein they're forming these strange deep bonds with, interest-based, like-minded people, and they're connecting to strangers. And it's being fed more and more, and their virtual world, which is their identity, which is developed because of the social media algorithm, is creating blinders to such an extent that other worlds perhaps may not exist as much. Now, you might say, hey, this is a little alarmist. Of course, they have other inputs in life. I'm sure that digital is not completely part of, it's not the only thing. They have a walk, they meet their family, they meet their friends. So what the hell are you talking about? What I'm saying is that imagine if all of their friends were also connected on their smartphones to their interest-based communities. And what if their friends were helicopter parents and their friends don't have too much time for them in the real world, but they are connecting with them virtually. Maybe mom and dad talk to you more on WhatsApp via texts, right? Or maybe the friend next door is happy to talk to you virtually. Under an avatar name, but not particularly happy to meet you, maybe even say hi to you when you cross the street. So it's a very interesting time wherein we are all slowly looking at this generation as it evolves and seeing the impact of digital technology and the social media algorithms on an entire generation and seeing its effect. Now, I'm not saying all of it is bad. I'm saying some of it will be good, because interest-based communities are sometimes cause-based communities, sometimes lead to healthy friendships, both in digital and physical life. But sometimes they just exclude other worldviews. They exclude the worldviews of the things that you perhaps do not, like. And here's the interesting thing for Gen Zers. They're making up their minds like a certain interest at the age of 14, but at the age of 16, they might be liking something else, and they might be liking something else at the age of 18 or whatever it is, because they're evolving and their brains are evolving, their interests are evolving. So they're continuously meeting newer and newer strangers. I don't think that's altogether a bad thing. I think it is healthy development in terms of the amount of inputs that you're getting to make your world well or world better. But I just think what needs to be a cautionary tale over here is to figure out, how do I actually look at other worlds when the social algorithm is defining my identity? So how can I make sure that the algorithm generation that I am part of, if I'm Gen Z, is not defining me as much as it should, or as it is right now? Well, it is a weird thought. Any thoughts welcome on this? I think the algorithm generation is going to surprise us with a lot of good things and with a lot of sadness sometimes at a life lost to, an algorithm, rather than the non-framing of life and just looking at life as it is without somebody, curating and shaping it for you. It remains to be seen what is good and what is bad. I waited for such a long time to actually make a judgment like this on an entire generation. And I'm still waiting because I'm still holding my breath. I don't know, but I'm looking at early signs to tell me, that this is something weirdly special. It's a revolution in the making. It is not just the generational gap. It is technology changing the way in which an entire generation is behaving and intuitively adapting itself to. So, food for thought for this weekend. I hope that you like this diary entry of mine, the algorithm generation, and I'm sure it's going to catch up. Well, I think that the most important thing for us to realize in this is to look at the algorithm generation with a fresh perspective ourselves and learn from them and perhaps share with them in a way that can break their veils at some point in time. On that happy note, until next time, but do follow me on LinkedIn and Instagram where I'm the Traveling Professor. And if you like podcasts like these, well, there's the ivmpodcast.com or just go download the app. Yeah. Bye now.
I hope you enjoyed that show. If you aren't following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Once again, just a quick reminder, please do help us out by filling out our survey. It's at ivmpodcast.com/survey. It really does help us figure out who's listening and, what are the characteristics that we can go and push to advertisers. That is massively helpful to us. Please, please, please do help out with that. So, on the network this week, let me start with a quick milestone. It's the 100th episode of Begin the Journey with Ashish Vidyarthi. Congratulations to Ashish and the team. Great show. If you're not listening to it, he talks to you about just how to approach life. It's just very, very cool stuff. Do check this out. I want to mention the note with Maruk Inayat. She talks about why petrol prices are so high. On the Wired Talk, Siddharth speaks with Harsh Mandar. On Advertising is Dead, Varun speaks to Kabir Biswas, the founder of Dunzo. They have a really interesting conversation about, what's the future of Dunzo and what they're thinking about. On the Traveling Professor's Diaries, check out Siddharth talk about the performance paradox. I found it really fascinating and interesting. I think that you guys will really get something out of listening to that. Please do give that a listen. And finally, let me mention Zindagi Diaries. It's Ragini Kumar's poetry podcast. The first week when it came out, we put out 5 poems first week. We put out another 5 poems this week, and the response has been phenomenal. Do check it out. It's in Hindi. It's a poetry podcast. Something a little different. Do give it a shot and let us know what you think. And with that, I hope to see you again next week.
What are some of the radical changes that are now shaping our workspace? With physical distancing and heightened safety protocols being the norm, will technology finally make its large-scale entry to the workspace? Will design as we know it change for the long term? Is it possible for the Indian commercial real estate space to adopt a 360-degree approach to sustainability? Join our hosts at the Future of Space podcast by RMZ as we deliberate with industry leaders, analysts, and bright young minds on the way forward for the workspace given the new COVID normal. Tune in to the IVM Podcasts app or wherever you stream your favorite podcasts